Can you tell what this is? This is an interesting picture. It's a photograph I saw on a website of an artist near Los Angeles. Her name is Elaine Cummins, and these are actually umbrellas. I wasn't quite sure when I first looked at it, and it intrigued me. It's very colorful. These are the handles of the umbrellas. They're all stacked up together here. Great shot. And she actually has a couple of really beautiful pictures here on her website at Fine Art Americas. So this is Elaine Cummins, and one of the pictures I really liked that inspired me to do this tutorial is down here, this one here, the arrow. So let me show you this. And what we'll do, when I saw this, I figured, well, wait a moment, this is perfect to add something to it here, the text that will say you are here, because this arrow is pointing right down here by my feet, right? So I'd like to show you how to perhaps add something like some text in this area. And the first thing we'll do is we'll capture this picture. Now, for the sake of this tutorial, it doesn't have to be high resolution. So with Elaine's permission, what I'll do is I'll simply go and zoom in a little bit and do a screen capture. I'll do that in full screen mode. So let me hit F11 on my browser, and then I'll go and wait for that to go away. There you go. And I'll capture, maybe I'll scroll down a tiny little bit more. There you go, something like this. And I'll take the screenshot with print screen. Then I can get rid of the browser. I have the picture in the clipboard. And so the first thing I'll do is I'll go to Dog Waffle here and grab it from the clipboard and paste it as a new image, right? And that's of course okay, so let's go do that. Now the screen capture caught everything, the entire screen, so it also has the window decorations and the shopping cart and all that sort of things here. So first thing we'll do is see another way to insert it here, by the way. Instead of going to the file, clipboard and paste, one thing I could have done is Control V, which allows me to see a couple of other clipboard options. And one thing you can do, you can insert it into the current image. If that happens to be at the same size or bigger, we can actually fit it that way. But the best way and the fastest way really is to go with the second option. Right, so let's go do that again, and there you go. All right, so one thing I'd like to do is grab just a portion here of that picture. So I'll use the rectangular selection tool. And with that, I can go and select just a portion of interest. And we don't have to be too precise on this just for a tutorial. We can go grab it roughly like this. All right, so this selection, and we can see it if we highlight it here, if we show overlay alpha, it shows in pink tone the portion that is not selected. And then in here, we see the full color as is. Let's go disable the alpha overlay and crop it to that selection. So we go to the image and crop to selection. And when we do that, we now have just the image in high enough resolution that we can live with it, right? I mean, this is not something we'll use for high resolution print because it's going to be a little bit pixelated. If you have better vision than I do, and that's going to be an easy thing to reach. But I'm going to use this, and I'm going to store this image right so. And so we have a snapshot copy we can easily go back to. I'm going to keep it down here. All right, so the first thing we'll need is what are we going to add here? Some text that says you are here. And one thing I'd like to do, since we'll probably experiment with it a little bit, I'll put that in a separate layer. And so this right here, you'll see that there is a layer. So maybe it's closed. You know, if I look at it and I see it here, and the info and the grids is below it, you can see the info, nothing here at this point. Unless you move over, then you see some mouse position information. What you can do is you can go to a layer, open that, and you see the layer. There's only one right now. The next thing I'll do is I'll add another layer. So let's click on add layer, and it's up here in white. Now by default it's a multiply mode, and so it multiplies to the layer underneath it, which means, you know, if it's white multiplying to anything, it's just keeping the same color, and that's fine. What I'd like to do is actually see this white in at least sort of an additive way or some other way, and we can try perhaps the screen mode. Yep, that will do, and then we can use the slider here to adjust how much of that you want to see. So the trick is now to actually draw the text into this white layer and have it white, have that text appear in white and nothing else around it. So one thing we could do, I don't know if we erase this to black. Yep, when we erase it to black, there's nothing left to be added in screen mode, and so we can use that. Another way would be with the additive mode. Same thing. If we erase to black, that additive layer is not contributing any changes. Whereas if we draw something like something on top here, whether it's blue or white, you see that it's going to add something to it. Right. So this is one way that we can also use it. It's in additive mode. Let's try stick with the screen mode for now, and if that works, then we'll just use that. Alright, so let's erase to black in screen mode. We're on that layer. Maybe we can make these a little bit bigger. Hard to see here on the screen capture, but we can go for large thumbnails. Alright, and so thing I'll do is I'll put some text on here, right? So let's use the text tool. Click on that and position it roughly where we'll need it, maybe make it bigger also, and we can always adjust that a little bit later. Let's first just type the text we want in there. Right, so it'll be something like U, next line, hit enter, and then R, and then here, and then perhaps an exclamation point or mark. And now what we need to do now is also make this bigger. So I'll go to the double T's here for TrueType fonts, and I'll choose a bigger font, one that has a little bit more filling. Let's go 72. Let's see how big that is. Ooh, that is maybe too big. You are here. That is definitely too big. We'll need to center it. Let's do that, and then go back to that font selection and make it a little bit smaller. 48 might be smaller. No, that's actually a good one to use. I think that will be good. Yeah. So, but maybe we need a different font. I don't like this font. Let's see what other fonts. This would be an Impact or a Stencil font, ideally. I don't know if I have Stencil here. So let's scroll down to Oh, look at that. I do have a Stencil Standard. Yeah, that'd be perfect. That's typically what it would be, right? If we have some sort of a stencil-based paint label or text added there. No, not. Let's keep it bold like that. 48. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah. I think I would call that perfect. So let's make it a little bit smaller just so we get a better idea of where it's going to place it. Now we can place it here. We'll shift it and reposition it later. We'll also tilt it. It will have to go in perspective so that it really appears it's on the road. Because if I place it here and let's say I select white as the color and then say apply text, it just writes it right over here. Now I can move it around. I can erase it. It's not going to erase the image underneath it because that's in a lower layer, right? I'm working in just this layer here right now. So if I show this text again and perhaps I'll render it, that's a start, but we'll need to do something else with it now. And one thing we can do is also, when we zoom in here, we can see that it's just a very crisp and perfect edge, and that's not going to look like it's really painted on the concrete or on the ground here, because the ground has a lot of cracks and uneven little speckles and details. So we need to perhaps add a little bit of noise to that. And one way to add noise is from the filter noise. Now, first temptation might be value noise or color noise, but the problem with that is that it's adding it all over the place, not just where the white stuff is. So I don't think that that's what we want, because you'll start seeing a little bit more noise in this area where we really didn't care for adding additional noise. All we need is to add noise to this white part of the text. So one that I would do is actually I would use the jitter, the jitter noise, because what that does is it takes the pixels, in this case the black pixels of this overlay image, and it jitters them. Well, they're all black and they remain black, right? And the white ones, they're white and they remain white. But along the border, you'll see some of the white ones move over to the black side, to the transparent side, and then some of the black move into the white ones. And so as you do that, you can see with the jitter that it's doing kind of the effect we're looking for, which is to do a little bit of a disruption just along the edges, right? And there you go. And now we can also smooth that a little bit with the blur. And we could go with a Gaussian blur or maybe even a simple blur. Don't have to be that sophisticated about it. There you go. So we can see a little bit of a bleeding. Some of the pixels here are very, very precise and crisp, and we might want to have them bleed a little bit into the next pixel. So that's what the filter, the blurring is going to do. So here's the filter blur, and we can do it perhaps a little bit like so. All right. So zooming back out, we're looking a little bit better. Now we need to tilt this. We need to take this image and kind of in the back move it faster back down so that it also gets smaller in a perspective projection. And we do have a filter for that, which is and you know what, before I do that, let's keep a snapshot of this. Let's store this image. So store this image, so we have just this text here as a snapshot, so we can always get back to that if we need to. Alright, so let's go to the filter now. Next step is the transform. Where is it? Alright, so we have a 3D designer. There it is at the bottom, the 3D perspective. Right, with that we can move it down along the x-axis. We rotate it, and as we do that, it rotates around. And actually, let me get back out and zoom out a little bit so we see the whole horizon. We want to see where is the horizon line? Somewhere up there, right? Because you see the top parts, the lines go down, the bottom parts, the line go up. So it's somewhere in the middle here is where the horizon is. That's where the focal point is of this perspective. So we need to tilt it in such a way that it seems to fade or to vanish into this horizon line. So let's go to the filter and find the transform group and the 3D perspective. Alright, and let's see if we can do that now. So we rotate it, and don't worry about those replications. Those we can turn off. That's the repeating part. But right now it's actually a good help to use it to guide you a little bit on this rotation, because it's fading into the horizon. So you can see this top of the replicas. This is the line, this is the horizon line we need to meet. And so what you want to do is see if you can rotate it to precisely or close enough to where you want it. Something like so. There you go. So now the horizon goes just about where you would imagine the vanishing point to go and meet. So that way this perspective here looks pretty good. Alright, then we can undo the repeating, and we have just our original image in the middle. Now it's a little bit too close, so we can use the texture U or V. Now the rotation is along the horizontal, but the pushing goes along the vertical, so we'll probably need to move the V. There it is. Now while we move it, it's showing the replica, but don't worry about that. The moment we let go, it will go away because it sees that the repeating is off. We unchecked that, and so we can do that. We can also position a little bit more to the left or to the right as needed. And we've got that actually pretty well done. So let's go and OK that. Let's store that image. That's also a good one to keep. There's another thing we could do at this point. Maybe we'd like to make it a little bit bigger, and since it's still in its own layer, we can certainly scale that up. So we can use the filter transform. There it is. And scale it up a little bit. Right, so there you do. And of course that's going to reposition it because it's scaling it from the center of the image down here. So we can also reposition it. Yeah, that's too big. You know what, I'll just keep it. I mean, this is just an idea to see what else we could do, but we probably will want to keep it. Sometimes you might want to rotate it. No, that's not good. That would skew the perspective. So let's keep it the way it is here. But there is one more thing we want to do. And what it is that it's too bright. It's when you look at the gray level or the brightness of this here, and you see here, these two are just different. The white on this arrow, that's the bottom of the arrow here, right? This white is kind of faded by comparison to this one. And so this is definitely an example of where you probably need to reduce the brightness of this. And since it's in its own layer, you can probably just adjust it here with the screen mode percentage, right? And then so at some point here, you can probably get it to just about the level you want. Plus it's kind of showing a little bit of a transparency that way. So if you do this, yeah, that's too little. So a little bit more. Right, you want to get it to a point where it's kind of similar to this, not too much brighter, not too much darker. And there you go. That may just be it. Now, there's probably a couple of other ways to handle this, this adjusting. One way I would see, for instance, would be when you blur this together, when you blend these together, you do that right there. All right, when you blend this together into a single image, you get rid of the layer. And that blending effect you can adjust a little bit. You can undo the most recent action. Oh no, wait, that's the undo from the original image there. So yeah, that's not going to go. So, well, here's where you want to have additional copies of the images, right? And we can easily reconstruct what we really wanted. Let me store this one. Store this. And go back with this one. That's the original. And add a new layer. There you go, and store this one in. So in this layer we have that, and this time instead of a screen mode, maybe we'll try additive, and we're back in business, right? And so we can go and perhaps adjust it like so. And you know, if we still need a little bit more flakiness to that and a little bit more noise, we can still do that. We can go to the filter one more time, add some more jitter noise, right? Just a little bit, like so. Just one level of jitter. Come on. My mouse is hesitating here. Okay. And there you go. And then perhaps a little bit more filter. What do we have? Some smooth and blur, simple blur. Oh, and we could even add a little bit of lighting to that. Alright, so I don't know if this, for instance, this paint were kind of a really heavy, thick paint. We could probably add a little bit of thickness to that with the stylized lighting tool. Alright, and we'll put it right over here. Let's see if we need to adjust. Yeah, that will give it a little bit of, look at that, some thickness effect. That's different, but it might be actually interesting to play with that as well. It's almost like a ghost image there now. Look at that. You are here. Alright, so a couple of other ways that we could work with this, and hope that that gives you some ideas of how you can do some compositing of different components and labeling and illustrations inside the pictures. Hopefully you can find your own photographs that you want to work with and do a little bit of dog waffling on that. Alright, thanks for watching. Oh, and here's one more thing I wanted to add. You know, if the color just doesn't seem to be exactly matching, it's perhaps because we're not using the perfect hue. What I had started here with the text was pure white, but the text, the color of this arrow is probably not pure white. There's a little bit of a pinkish tone to it. Some parts a little bit more bluish, but for the most part I would say a little bit pink, especially down in this area. Over here closer, more on the blue side. So one thing you could do is you could go to that layer. You saw that I experimented with other layers here. Let's get rid of this one. So this layer here, let's go with this here. Alright, so this layer I'm going to keep in additive mode for now. Alright, but I want to change its color so that it's better matching this one without even adjusting. So what I'll do is I'll simply go here with the bottom layer, and I'll select it with the color picker. So there's the color picker here, or turkey baster, and with that I can go and select the colors. Now when you look over here where the color values are displayed, where is that? Somewhere here you should see the color values. Color swatch, it's probably in RGB mode. There you go. So I'm using the turkey baster to find my color, and as you moving around, I don't know if you can see that over here, these arrows will go crazy. So what I'll do is I'll select this to pick a color, and that color should be representative for the bigger part of this panel, right? You don't want the dark crevices, you don't want the bluish tint you have down here, you want some of the pinkish notes you have around here. So grab that there, that might be good. And you see this is definitely not pure white. All right, so you have that in the primary color. Now what you do is you go to this layer on top where the text is, and you apply that. So next time you do your text, if you do the text from scratch, you actually want to do that not like this, but you want to, not in white, but you want to have it in that pink color. Now you could also tint it to that value, and there's some filters that allow you to do that. If you look at the color, or rather the adjust, you can adjust the color and tint it. I don't know if you can set the exact value there, but this is a multiply mode, so you would think that should probably work. If you have the colors in the RGB value set here. Where is it? There, you see the colors 223, 203, 208, just a little bit more red than there is green and blue. What you could do is you could try to do that. In fact, let's do that on the perspective view. So let's go and undo this. There you go. Here's the perspective view, and apply the filter, color, adjust color, and set the values to 223, 203, and see if we get something a little bit better. You see how it's taking a little bit of a reddish tint here, and 220, actually this is a percentage marker, so that's not exactly the same, but you know what, it's probably going to be good enough if we have just roughly that sort of alignment where we have a little bit more red and about the same, a little bit more blue perhaps than green, but it's going to be a little bit more on the pink note. And then you can still work with the transparency. So let's make sure we go here and reduce the transparency. There. So that's less white and a little bit more on the pink side. And that's how you can probably make it look a little bit more like it's really integrated and part of that picture overall. And there are other techniques that you could use, especially if the picture is changing in brightness across there. You know, like you see the reflection here, it's a little bit wider, it's got a little bit of a bluish tint, perhaps a reflection from the sky. That sort of thing you can also adjust on the picture that you're overlaying here, and then so that way it will also kind of integrate better into the whole picture. All right, just another technique that you might want to explore a little bit. And finally, still not done, there is also another technique that will be really useful to know about, and that's how to add some embossing based on that underlying image. Let me explain. Let me hide the layer here for the time being. This one we don't need anymore. Actually, we could use with this one. Either way, I have two different versions here. But the idea is to grab this portion here, this image where the text is going to show, right? We can highlight that with the selection, something like so, right? Or it could be even with the lasso cursor. We could say, let's go something like this area here, right? And then we can hide this, and we work on the picture underneath it. So we still have the selection here. Let's show it with the overlay. So this is the selection, and what I'm interested in doing is grabbing this as a texture into the paper texture. In fact, you know, we don't even have to be sophisticated with that selection. It's probably easier for replication of the texture if we just use the rectangular area selection, the rectangular selection tool. All right. The key thing is to have this middle area here where the text is going to be overlaying on top, right? If we enable this, you'll see the text right there. Well, so what we do is we grab this as a paper texture. How do we do that? Well, one thing we can do, first of all, is grab it as a custom brush. That's really easily done. Just go to the brush tool. The selection is in effect already. Let's go to the brush tool and say use the selected as a custom brush or as a brush. So Control B will do that too. It'll pick it up. In fact, if you press preview PRV here when you are in the paint mode and you have the full opacity, you can actually see it's now in your brush. But we're not going to use it as a brush. We're going to use it as a paper texture. And so that's how we can do that here. You see this thing here, this actually enables the paper texture. You can right click on that too. And oh, that's actually not where we'll do that. It's where do I have oh yeah, I know, it's under the filter menu. So now what we do is we'll go back to this layer now where the text is. We'll enable that. We don't need to preview the brush. And what we'll do instead is we'll go and apply on this filter that we have enabled, we'll apply that paper texture now. So the trick here is to go to the filter, and there is a tool called under the artistic collection called apply current paper. Right, so let's go do that. And what you see is it actually applies all over. Right, so we'll probably need to do something about that. And one thing we could do is actually put that selection mask in place again. Maybe we'll do one that is a little bit more precise. We could do a selection mask that's just on the text itself too. We could actually draw that selection mask into we could draw that text into the selection mask, you know, but at the least you'll want to select the area here so it's only applying the texture into that area. One thing that, in fact, I'll do that more sophisticated approach, which is to say, clear the selection and then just grab this text, right? That's this one here in this layer, grab that as a selection. So the way I'll do that is I'll go to the selection and store it. Right now there is no selection, which means basically everything is selected. And I'll store the alpha, and then I'll grab the buffer, which grabs the image from that layer, right? It grabs the image, and now that's in my selection mask, and the white part is what's selected. So in other words, if I paint something, as long as I put that selection in there, so now I have that selection right there, if I paint something, it's going to paint it only through that mask. And I could go and paint, for instance, like so, and paint it there. And in fact, you see right now I have the brush still with the text, and it's applying that texture right through there. So that allows me to get a little bit more of that that 3D look, the embossing that's actually from the gravel scene underneath it. Let me go clear the overlay mode here. So now if I go and apply that paper texture, filter, artistic, apply current paper, you can see that there is a certain amount of paper texture you can apply here. These are the predefined, but you can also use a brush. Or if you have an image like a JPEG or a BMP, I forget which format it is. I think there's a couple of formats. Yeah, Windows Bitmap, BMP, or JPEG. You can load the image that you want to use as a paper texture, but you can use the brush as well. So when you use the brush, which we still have, I can store the brush image here. There you go. So that was the image I had captured, and it's in the custom brush. I can use that as a paper texture, and then I can see a little bit of adjusting on there. I can show the dry brush. I can adjust some of that. It's subtle. It's not very strong here. Maybe I need to apply OK. And of course, probably the better result was when I actually was painting there. So let me try that, or fill. Again, with the paper texture enabled, if I fill, it will, and I need to be on the right texture here. Yeah, I am on this texture layer, and painting on there, that also helped. So I'll probably use just that technique. Where's my custom brush? There it is. Pick that, and so you can see that as you're painting on there, it's going to help create a little bit more of that embossed look that you see because of the cracks in the street, and a little bit of an embossed appearance will come from that. You can still adjust the brightness. You can also do an embossed filter on that now if you needed to. Where is it there? The convolution filter. You can emboss color, or gray emboss, probably not. Let's keep it in colored as is, but you can add a little bit more embossing to it, so it will even lift it up a little bit. Now, that might be a little bit too much, but anyway, there's some room for exploration and further experimenting if you needed to do that. Control D will clear that, and there you go. So now we have that text even more kind of blending in to the reality of that scene and showing some wear. It's not perfect there. It's still a little bit brighter, but you know, we've seen how to adjust that, make it a little bit wider and that sort of things. Let's see if we can add that here on the color adjust. You could adjust the value and go here. Yeah, there you go. So here you can adjust a little bit more, make it brighter, but be careful not to adjust it all over, because the brightness will go into the area around it too. So you want to reset that, and perhaps just work with the value, change the contrast, all sorts of adjustments you can do there to get it just right. All right, and so that's that for this tutorial on showing where you are, and you are definitely here in the land of dog waffling.